Hey, what's up to everybody out there? Welcome to another edition of the Roundtable Talk. I am your host, C Money, and first off, I want to say, um, let's send our prayers out. Today is 9/11, and I'm doing this show. You people probably see this show days after, so we're remembering 9/11. We all know what happened that tragic day, and it was horrific. And my remembrance and my prayers go out to the families of the victims who was tragically killed in 9/11, and also if there was any survivors who survived it, which it was rarely any. My prayers go out to them because I know every year you around 9/11 it's a heartwarming tribute, and it's horrific, and I know it's devastating to do that. So um my prayers go out to everybody out there, because it could have been one of our family members, it could have been one of us, and it was horrific. So let's get right into our episode, as I want to talk about something that just recently happened. I have a bunch of topics I was thinking about talking about, but now I want to talk about this. Today's topic is political assassination. Well, technically, that wasn't going to be the topic. It was going to be the Charlie Kirk assassination, but I just decided, why not do political assassination? As you know, a couple of days ago, political activist Charlie Kirk was assassinated in at a college in Utah, and amongst us was 3,000 people who are close to 3,000 people who was attending, which was a rally of sort, a gathering of a function, and he was answering questions and he was talking, and an assassin on the roof, shot him in the neck, and from what the news was saying, that he had blood pouring out of his body, of his neck, like gushing out. And I guess they tried to rush him to the hospital and pronounced him dead. Now, this assassination, I want to talk about this because it's not just about political assassination, it's about assassination, period. Because remember when Donald Trump was running for president, the now president Donald Trump, remember when he was running for president last year in 2024, and he got almost got assassinated twice. Once at a political campaign rally, and then I forgot the other state. And that political, he almost got killed. He would have been killed if it wasn't for him turning, because the assassin that assassin actually shot his ear. So it was said that if he hadn't turned the way he turned, if he hadn't turned, he probably would have got shot worse, and it probably would have killed him. Not saying that he would have died or anything, but he would have got killed. And then once again in Palm Beach County at his Mar-a-Lago estate, he was playing golf and stuff like that, and there was an attempt to it. I was just watching the news right before I did this episode. They are doing the trial for the alleged assassin killer now in Fort Pierce, because I believe they found them in Fort Pierce. They found them on I-95. He tried to kill the president on the golf course, and then he fled the scene, and they later caught him on 95. Now, what I want to say about this is, we are living in crucial times right now. We are living in crucial times. And what I'm saying about that is, even our own president is not safe. There was an event down here in Miami, the UFC event, that happens at the Kaseya Center, which is home of the Miami Heat. And I was told that President Trump, likes UFC. He visited, and before he became president, like when Joe Biden was president, he was there at the UFC event, because the UFC it's been for the past few years. It's been hosting its fights at the Casette Center every year, and I think the first year it came, Donald Trump was there, but at the time he was a former president, and he was in the building, and they had high security measures. And this year they had UFC, and they said this was the first time that a president had stepped foot in this venue. Like, former president has stepped in the venue, because Donald Trump at one point was a former president and he was in the venue. But this was the first time that an actual president was in the venue. They say security was so, security was so ramped up. They say that a lot of people, you couldn't bring bags in as workers or people, they had so much security ramped up to where Secret Service was everywhere, meaning that you couldn't even sneeze wrong. And that's how much amped up security was. And I think that was because of the fact of the assassination attempt when he was running for president, and they had to amp up security. Now, I can tell you right now, there is going to be so much security, like even anything in political minds, there's going to be so much security. Excuse the noise. It's probably one of the, they're doing construction out there or something like that. But there's going to be ramped up security at a lot of rallies now, regardless if it's a political rally, regardless if you're the president, regardless if you're the first, the vice president, the first lady, the vice first lady, whether you are somebody who works for the president, whether you're political, a mayor or something like that, attending a conference or rally, there are going to be amped up security now, because we are seeing too many of these assassination attempts. Whether and Charlie Kirk was just he wasn't a politician, he was just a political activist, and he was at a college school. Now, what I don't believe they have, because this is an ongoing investigation and they're still looking for the shooter of Charlie Kirk. I honestly believe this was a Donald Trump assassination attempt, meaning that Donald Trump was not there, but this is somebody that hates Donald Trump, or don't like Donald Trump, and they say, we're gonna kill his people, because I'm quite sure Charlie Kirk was in compliance, or was in, with Donald Trump. He was, he was a Trump supporter. He probably was a Republican, and he probably, I know he done met Donald Trump before, and he probably was part of the Republican team or whatever. I know he's not part of his cabinets, but, part of things like that. So what I'm saying is, they're probably one of them people. I can't get Trump, but I'm gonna get one of his political personnels. Pow, and they got him. And now you're thinking, what if this would have been Donald Trump there at this college? Because this man got him good. He shot him in the neck, and he had blood gushing out. And the man was only 31 years old. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like, when it comes to it, now you're looking at a lot of this stuff, and it comes down to, are we safe in America anymore? You see what's going on in Gaza and Israel and all that, to where, people are losing their lives. And now you here in America, you have shootings after shootings, people going into nightclubs, shooting people. We talked about this in the crosswalk situation. People going into schools, going in college campuses, shooting people. A lot of these people are assassinating, not assassinating, but they are, mass shootings and stuff like that. And you're wondering, where are we at as Americans? We know, and I'm gonna say this allegedly, I'm thinking, and this is my opinion, a lot of these assassin shooters and mass shootings and mass shooters, a lot of them have health or mental issues. I was just in Brickell the other day, and I was, waiting on one of the trolleys, and I was sitting there at the trolley, and I told them, and I say, I was literally in front of the W icon Brickle, which, if I never told you the story, weeks ago, probably last month, a guy got into the uh, um condominium apartment complex or whatever, icon Brickle, and he was going from door to, like, floor to floor, checking doors, and a door was unlocked, and he got in and he killed a 17-year-old boy who was sleeping, and you know, and he killed them. Now the alleged killer did get away, but he ended up dying because he fled into an abandoned construction building, and he slipped and fell from one of the top floors, and he fell to the ground to his death. And I told the wife, and I said, oh, this is the icon Brickle. This is the building where the guy got in, and he, allegedly, killed the boy. And I'm like, okay, how, and what I was saying with this, I said, even though these buildings have security, it is not hard to get inside of a building. Like, a lot of these buildings, even though they have amped up security, there's easier ways of getting it. You could be posing as an Amazon driver and say, hey, I'm delivering a package to such and such and such. And the security person can say, okay, go right ahead. You're just delivering a package. And all, in there, it could be tools to go, into somebody's building, because I've seen it on criminal shows. I've seen on cop shows and a lot of these, scripted shows, to where it's easy to get into a building. The security guard say, "Oh, you're here to do repairs for the Joneses in 111. Okay, you can go on up." And then you go up, and then eventually, you're killing somebody and stuff like that. Cause security, they're, a lot of these securities, they're thinking, okay, you're here to drop off packages. You're here. Now there are some security officers that will confirm, and they'll call, or they'll have the people come downstairs and say, hey, I'm supposed to be expecting a delivery package. If I can you leave it here at the front desk? Or they may not know that their delivery package is being delivered today, and when the delivery person get there, they have to try to figure out, okay, do we have the number to contact this person to let them know there's a delivery coming or something? There's a high lot of security. So when I look at it, I say there are things that, in place, when just even when you are at these political rallies and political, events and stuff like that, you do have FBI and secret services and stuff like that are there, but they're not 100% guaranteed to stop. Just like how I'm quite sure there was amped up security there. It wasn't the Secret Service or the FBI. I know they had police and security because it wasn't the president. The only person that gets the Secret Service and the FBI is president and former presidents. Like, a lot of these political people, there are some people, like, in the White House cabinet, like, the press secretary, or one of the Secretary of State and stuff like that. I know that a lot of them, they do get Secret Service and stuff like that because they're part of the president's cabinet. But he was a political activists and stuff like that. So I don't believe they had Secret Service. Even if they did, they're not able to catch everything. Because you have, the only thing is that you have to check every person that's coming to these rallies and make sure that they don't have any guns, they don't have any weapons and stuff like that. This shooter was on the roof of a building. And the one thing that I believe the government haven't gotten right is, you need to have secret services and you need to have FBI people scouring not only on the ground floor but on these buildings. Because remember when there was an attempt to assassinate Trump, the first shooter that shot him in the air was on top of a roof. How is it not that right there should have said, let's have some secret services on top of the roofs of these buildings so we can get a better view of them? Because a lot of these shooters they're called sniper shooters. They're called snipers. I've seen it in some episodes. I've seen it in one of my favorite episodes in The Heat of the Night, where a man was at the top of a church, steeple or what at the top of a church and shot somebody. And I've seen it in other several other episodes. They're called sharpshooters, like the DC shooter, the DC sniper they called it or whatever. There's a lot of these shooters, and and I'm like, the government hasn't gotten that right to where I know a lot of these um buildings and a lot of these roofs, they don't have entrances like the building I live in. It's just a two-story apartment building. It's not like we have a ladder to get up to the roof. If they need to do roofing repairs or something like that, they have to use a ladder. But a lot of these buildings, they do have it where you have stairs that lead to the roof. How did the shooter get on the roof? How did this shooter get past security? Even though they said the shooter looks like, they have pictures and stuff like that the shooter looks like he blends in because he looks like a campus person that goes to the campus. But at the same time, I'm looking at it as if, how are these people getting this? How are these, if you have people on the bottom that's looking like security and secret services, how can one person not look up and say, hey, there's somebody on the roof, and they can get them right before they shoot somebody, and even when you say, hey, look, there's somebody on the roof, President, get down, and obviously that, because what happened with Trump could have been avoided. Now, the one in Palm Beach did get avoided because they say the Secret Service person did, notice in the bushes, but they say the Secret Service thought it was a homeless man sleeping in the bushes because, they're known for that. But when he started finding evidence like a gun and certain evidence, he knew that this wasn't a homeless person. This was an attempt on the president's assassination. This was an attempt to kill the president or shoot the president. And a lot of these assassinations and a lot of these attempts could be avoided. You're at a rally at a college, and a lot of these colleges, they have dorms and stuff like that, and they have on the roof. A lot of these people, they can easily get to the roof, and you can look at it and say, hey, look, there's somebody on the roof. Hey, get down, everybody get down. And then he just can start shooting. Now I believe the shooter for Charlie Kirk didn't only shot one shot and got his attempt. Now if he wouldn't have shot and killed Charlie Kirk on the first attempt, he would have been shooting more bullets until he actually got the target, and there would have been a lot more killings. But the fact that he actually got him at the first shot, he was done, because he got his leg. Because a lot of these shooters and a lot of these assassins, they shoot several shots until they actually get the assassin shooter. Like they shot Trump in the ear, and he alright knew then and then knew that he wasn't gonna be able to get him no more. But the assassin attempt on Charlie Kirk, the shooter got him. If he shot and would have missed, he would have shot multiple times before. He would have shot like 3 or 4 more times until he would have found that he would have got him. But in that attempt, he would have shot somebody else and would have injured somebody else and probably would have killed somebody else. Then that's when he would have known, okay, because if he wouldn't have shot nobody, he would have kept shooting until he shot somebody. And his alleged attempt would have been Charlie Kirk. Now, if he would have shot somebody else, he would have been like, oh, shoot, I shot somebody else. Okay, I got to stop and go. Because now I'm already in heat. I'm already in trouble because I killed somebody else. But he was like, oh, I got Charlie Kirk. Okay, I'm good. Bam, got to go. I don't need to shoot nobody else. Because now you got your alleged target. But a lot of these mass shootings and shooting attempts, some of them, especially when they go into these schools and these nightclubs, and especially when they go into these college campuses and stuff, they don't have a set target. It's just, we have to know what's the purpose behind it. Because there is a purpose behind you wanting to go on a mass shooting and kill a bunch of students at a college campus, or going to a high school like they did in Parkland back a few years back. and go kill 17 people, or like they did in the Pulse nightclub when they went and killed 49 people at a nightclub. There is a target or a reason behind it. But the shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, which was one of the his like horrific mass shootings in the United States, was said that he was pledging to ISIS, and also that he was a homophobic person. But there was also alleged that he was trolling um, gay dating apps as well before then. But I believe he was stalking out the place because he was one of those people that um, where he, was trying to make his case that I don't like gay people, so I'm going to wipe out the gay people. But my thing is, and I think I talked about this in previous episodes, where you can't wipe out a population that can't get wiped out. That's just like saying I'm going to kill all black people. You do realize black people doesn't just exist in the United States. You have white people, you have black people in England and London and China and Paris and Cuba and Jamaica and Russia and Iceland. You have black people all over the world. By you in here in the United States and say I'm going to kill all the black people, that sounds ignorant. That's just like saying I'm going to wipe out the gay population. You do realize there is a city that I told you about in previous episodes in Wilton Manors that is dedicated to the LGBTQ community. There are cities across the United States that are gay and lesbian friendly. There are neighborhoods that is LGBTQ friendly. So by you saying I'm going to wipe out the gay, and I look at that and I say this is ridiculous. And I believe the assassin shooter for Charlie Kirk is he was one of those Trump haters that wanted to get one of Trump's administrators or one of Trump's supporters to where, I may not can get Trump, but I'm sure gonna get one of his supporters or one of his constituents or one of his cabinets, and bam, 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 And I look at it as if this is supposed to be a wake up call for the United States. We all now have to buckle down because we can't worry about other countries coming to attack us. We need to worry about the people in our own backyard. Look how many of our family members are getting killed because of gang violence, because of haters. One of those people that was attending that rally at the college for Charlie Kirk, they could have got killed in the mist. The snipers are good because they have those guns that has those scopes, radar scopes that can, but you can easily, one of those people could have easily got hurt and killed, and we don't care enough to say, when we have large amounts, I know when they have like spring break or when they have like, gatherings like New Year's Eve gatherings and stuff like that, yeah, they have a heavy police presence. But why can't we get the CSI and the Secret Service or FBI and a lot of these government services out there to these events? Because you realize the police is trained, but they are not trained like the Secret Service. They are not trained like the FBI. These people are trained as if you going to a New Year's Eve party, the president is going to be there. Just like when, like I said, the president was at the Kaseya Center, which is the home of the Miami Heat here in South Florida, when the president hears UFL, that Secret Service, they was walking the floor as if the president was walking the floor with them. They told people you couldn't go in certain areas, you had to wait. They even told people who was working there, you couldn't do nothing. Like, you had to stand in one spot. You couldn't leave or go nowhere. So a lot of work wasn't getting done there. You may have where a guest probably ordered their food in the suites area or in the area where you order your food from your seats, and because a lot of these arenas, they have concession stands and stuff like that. But not only concession stands, they have areas in these arenas and these sports complexes where you can order your food from your, they have the rich people section where you can order your food from your seat, or you can order your food from your table, in the suites. They have suites, they have, skyboxes and stuff where you can order your food, and the waiter has to go get your food, and they probably telling the waiter, oh, you have to wait because Trump is sitting in the area, or Trump is walking by, or Trump is in the area, so the guests will have to wait on their food and stuff like that, and then you waiting 30 minutes, and so I was like, where's my food? And you come back and say, I'm sorry, they told me I couldn't move, I couldn't come in the room because Trump was here and I had to wait. There was a lot like that, and this is what needs to be done at these political rallies and all of this stuff. If you have even if you, it's people that, Trump is not there, or a presidential candidate is not there, if it's somebody who's rallying a event for the president or for the, elect candidate, you need to have secret services and FBI and stuff like that, because he is just a political activist and he got assassinated. So that means nobody is safe. Nobody is safe in this thing. To me, I feel like there needs to be more tight security at these functions, and it don't even have to be a political function. It don't have to be a president themed function. It don't have to be um a rally or for a candidate for presidential election. It could just be a regular 4th of July celebration event, New Year's Eve celebration event, an event where large amounts of people are gathered to celebrate. It can be Martin Luther King celebration. It could be, the Michael Jackson celebration. Just a couple of weeks ago, they had a birthday celebration for Michael Jackson at 2300 Jackson Street, which is the former home of the Jackson family, and they celebrated Michael Jackson's birthday there with with some of the Jackson family members and stuff like that. You could have had Secret Service there as well too, but because of the fact that it's not the president, you don't have a high presence of security there, and somebody could have went by and started killing somebody there. And I look at it and say, where are we as Americans to say that we go to these large amounts of functions that have thousands and thousands of people there, and you don't have amped up security to where we are protected. I know a lot of these nightclubs, they have bouncers and they have, on-site security, and stuff like that. So we're not prone to say, okay, we're not gonna get, but you can. There's been several shootings at nightclubs that happened. There's been several shootings, at several functions that's not, politics related. Look at the shooting at the Parkland, Florida, which is in Broward County, where the guy got into the school and killed 17 people. Now you have to amp up security at public schools, because now anybody can just walk into a school and start shooting. It's the same thing with college campuses. I've been to college campuses before, in the past. I'm not saying that I'm an assassin shooter. I'm just saying, I've been to several campuses where I've had friends. My brother was, he lived on campus at a school down here, and I was able to get on campus, just walk through and stuff like that. There's certain campuses I know they have, if you going in through a vehicle, there's, they stop and ask questions. But walking, I done walked inside of school campuses and just walk through without having security check me to say, do you work here, are you a student here, and stuff like that. I done walked in several places like that, and I know there's a lot of people that did. I've had friends, that either, lived on school campus, where I've walked onto school campus to visit them, or they worked on school campus and I've walked to their jobs and things like that, or I knew a family member that went to college or something like that, or there's these places that you would think is safe, and then bam, somebody comes and and so I want to know what you think about this. Do we need more security at these functions? Do you think that we don't need? I believe we need more security in a lot of these places that is political and non-political, at colleges, at universities, at technical schools, at big events, whether if it's a political event or a non-political event, whether it's just a celebration amongst a gathering of 2-3,000 people. I think we need more amped up security. What do you think about this? Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk, and my prayers go out to him and his family, and to everybody who was associated with him. Rest in peace. I know this is a horrific situation. Comment at the bottom of this page. Also, email me roundtable00@yahoo.com. I thank you for watching this. This is the Roundtable Talk. I am your host, C Money. And as always, stay safe, stay blessed, stay hydrated, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.